Hello everyone, this is Ronnie from YouTube, from the UK Fruit Festival. Coming soon, gonna open up soon if you want to register early. Sorry, not really got this on a tripod, just got it sitting up against some orange juice there. So I got some responses, so I made a video about the carnivore diet, a little bit of a video about the carnivore diet, and got some responses to it. So let's go through some of these responses just in case you're concerned about these answers. And on this channel, I don't do a carnivore diet. It turns out I'm not a carnivore. If I was a carnivore, I would happily do a carnivore diet. But the idea of eating dead animals doesn't appeal to me. If I was to walk out my door, I ask all my carnivore people, if you walk out your door and there's a dead animal lying on the floor, whether just outside your house, out in the street, your instant reaction is disgust. That's a human reaction. That's your human instinct. That's millions of years of evolution that chose, or whatever the way that happens, that basically made people react like that. And the people that reacted like that to dead animals survived because they didn't get the tapeworms and the parasites and the bacteria and all the stuff that's in dead animal flesh. So we look at dead animals and we're disgusted. We stay away from it. It smells bad. It's kind of simple. It's really, really, really simple. But we'll go through some of these things. And it's funny because I was looking up some studies. I just thought I would go on Google Scholar and see if there was anything about research on raw meat diets and stuff. I go on Google Scholar, raw meat diets, and I come up with these studies that are like, are raw meat diets safe for cats? Concerns about raw meat diets for dogs. And I'm reading it and it's like salmonella, like worms, bacteria, all this stuff. I'm like, the scientists are worried about raw meat diets for cats that literally go out and kill animals and eat them, in your back garden or whatever, and dogs that obviously have a nature of killing and eating animals. The scientists are worried about raw meat diets for those animals. What? I don't know. Like, what makes you think that that's going to be good for the human? That we're not like a cat. We don't go out and hunt. You've got to get this. See, if you're a carnivore person, you've got to get this point that I'll get into this in a second, but you actually do have an instinct. Like, it's not been killed. Your instinct or whatever hasn't died because give me a second, just plugging something in. Because you're civilized is what I'm going to say. Your natural instinct hasn't died because you're a civilized person. A bit dirty there. You still got that instinct. So it's not like, oh, I need to relearn that a dead animal's actually not a disgusting thing. That's just your nature. You're not going to get rid of that. That's why we dress it up, cut it up, put flavourings on it, put it in a sauce and all that stuff. And even then, it's like when I was looking back on when I ate meat, that was like the worst part of the whole meal. Like, it was always like the worst part. I never admitted that to myself, but it was the worst part, right? So I got a bunch of questions on this video. But it's all looking the same kind of questions. People have lived on animals for thousands of years. Thousands is a short amount of time, but anyway, people have lived on animals for thousands of years. Veganism is very new. Blah, blah, blah. My grandmother used to only get an orange once a year at Christmas. They were expensive, not widely available. I live in the US. Strawberries used to be the size of a dime. Thanks to GMO, added sugar, you really think they're adding sugar to the fruit and something to make fruit bigger and sweeter? The fruit is huge, man-made. This is this is every argument in the book here. Organic fruit used to have bug holes and scabs all over it. Now it doesn't. Any animal eats fruit anyway. They're all scavengers. Fruit's just sugar. Fruit's sugar, whether it's dates, rock cane sugar, oranges, maple syrup, agave, bananas, it's all sugar. Your pancreas, blah blah blah. Steve Jobs, blah blah blah. Yeah, vegans age rapidly and all that. So that's a lot of different things, right, to try and deal with. But people have lived on animals for thousands of years. I don't deny at all that human beings have eaten animals for longer than that, probably hundreds of thousands, millions of years. You could probably find evidence of people on occasion eating animals, and definitely the last few thousand years, of course. But it's a much smaller proportion of the general diet than we really realise. In the last 100 years, maybe the last 50 years really, the amount of meat in people's diets has went up. The heart diseases went up. Cancers went up. Now people will say, oh, the sugars went up as well. Okay, all these guys think the sugar's the problem, right? Sugar's not been connected to any of these diseases at all. But this is all a big conspiracy theory, obviously. The last 100 years, major marketing for whatever reason to get people to eat more meat and sell meat. And at one point they thought that, you know, protein was important for people's health. It was a mistaken idea, but it's not really lost its appeal yet. And protein powders and all this rubbish still sells. People think protein's important. It's not that important. Carbohydrates are far more important for your general well-being. But the whole idea that fruits have been grown, man-made to be bigger, yeah, there is a truth to that. So what happens is we find fruits in the wild and we grow those fruits and then we cultivate them. They cultivate the best ones together to then improve the quality of the next tree that grows, and that's exactly the same thing that we did with animals, exactly the same thing that we did with farm animals. It's just farming. It's not GMO. GMO is a very relatively new thing, but there's an interesting thing with these carnivore guys that they say like plastic fake fruit and stuff like that, and they don't understand that fruit actually looks that good in nature. Like, you can go and look at what chimpanzees and everything eat. They can't believe that our nature is to enjoy how fruit looks. This is another thing called instinct. Human instinct is to go, wow, that looks beautiful, that looks amazing, whereas you've changed it into, that must be fake because it looks so good. It looks so like appealing and colourful that must be fake, right? Because the food that you eat looks so bad that you think, it's nothing to do with it looking good or bad. It's about the whatever nutrition in it or whatever. No, we are frugivores. Therefore, fruit looks good to us. That's why it's always the thing that's on a poster about healthy or whatever. Or it's the one food that looks properly good to us. The only food really that looks good to us, and meat doesn't look good to us because it's not a food that we consumed a lot of going back long enough. But there's no way that people ate a lot of fruit. Just economically, a lot of meat. Economically, we couldn't eat. You couldn't, like, say there's a city of 10,000 people, and they're all going to eat meat back in the day. Well, how many animals? Just mathematically start to look through these numbers. How many animals is that to feed 10,000 people meat every single day? How many chickens to feed 10,000 people eggs? How many, it starts to be a lot of land because those animals need to be fed and grown and butchered, then the meat has to be stored. It's like, it didn't happen, right? It just didn't. That's not how people were what people were living off. People were eating a mostly vegetarian diet, whether you want to believe that or not, but that's what had to be the case. There just wasn't any other way. And fruits and vegetables were a big part of that, whether you believe that or not. Because even in the northern countries, in the southern countries, the northern countries really, we had orchards. We grew fruit. We grew fruits that would last a long time. In some countries, they dry fruits. In Pakistan, places, well, lots of countries, they would dry fruits so that they would last longer and stuff like that. So we've always had these techniques of storing fruit and eating it throughout the year. That's also been lost in the last 100 years. The knowledge of that's been completely lost because sugar came into the diet, and essentially sugar's replaced fruit for a lot of people. But before that, what else would have satisfied our craving for sweetness? Organic vegetables. Organic is an industry now, and they use organic. They use organic. What do you call it? Pesticides. They use organic pesticides, so that's why the fruits look better than they maybe used to. But if you're concerned about pesticides and all that, meat has the highest quantity of pesticides of any food. Just feel free to look that up. Meat has the absolute highest amount. Unfortunately for you guys. So you're taking in way more of that than any fruitarian will ever do. All animals are scavengers. No, that's not the case. Not all animals will eat fruit. Not all animals can eat fruit. Fruit has a covering on it that stops animals getting into it. Fair enough, strawberries, plums, oranges. Do you think that a coyote is going to bite into an orange? That's why oranges taste so bad when you bite into it, into the skin. Same with bananas. They couldn't open a banana. So not all animals are eating fruit. Frugivores can, because we have hands that are designed to open fruits. You said you gave up sugar. Fruit is sugar. Whether it's dates, raw cane sugar. Fruit is sugar. This is a really strange message. Fruit is a whole food. It's like saying fruit is sodium. Fruit is potassium. Fruit is fibre. Fruit is 100,000 phytonutrients. Like, it's a combination of all sorts of different things. It does have sugar in it. Fruit does have sugar, glucose, fructose, and glucose. And if you're talking about this brain that we have that is fueled by glucose, and I get the fact that all the low carb movements, like your brain's made out of saturated fat, so you need to eat saturated fat. That's the claim. It's not true, of course. Because none of these low carb or carnivore guys worry about science, worry about how the body works. You just want to buy into a crazy diet. What our brain is made up of is, if it is made up of saturated fat, which I don't think it is entirely what it's made up of, but let's say it was, it's made up of human saturated fat, human protein, human saturated fat. We create our own saturated fat for those purposes safely. So the fat that we've got, the fat that we've got that insulates our body is saturated fat, right? But it's human saturated fat. It's not. We don't just add pig fat to our own body. We don't just take in cow fat and slap it onto our body. That's not how it works. We would have to take in the cow fat, what have you, break it down, and then turn it into the kind of saturated fat that we require for our body. The idea that you just take in the saturated fat of an animal and just that's the exact same fat that we've got, it's not going to work like that, you know. But we will store it as added fat, if that's what you mean, like the fat that ends up on your belly if you get overweight. Yeah, we'll just store that. But in terms of the fat used for particular things in our body, it's created by the body. The cholesterol we need is created by our liver. We don't need to take in cholesterol and saturated fat. And that's just the way it is. Just like a cow doesn't need to take in saturated fat, it takes in unsaturated fats that it turns into in its own body, in its cells, into cow saturated fat. But we don't need to do that. Your pancreas has to put out lots of insulin every time you eat fruit. This is actually not true. The least, if you get diabetics and you put them on a fruit diet, they can reduce the amount of insulin that they take. If you have a type 2 diabetic, well, a type 2 diabetic, even a type 1 diabetic who needs to take insulin, often, like Robbie Barbaro is an example, but if they go on a fruit diet, they end up using less insulin. They use less insulin. It's not all about the sugar. It's about the body's ability to utilize, to transfer that sugar into the cells, which you do need insulin to do. But you need insulin to do that regardless of what you're eating. Like, how do you think it works? Like, we're always going to be producing insulin regardless of the diet. Otherwise, a diabetic could simply give up sugar, give up carbohydrates, and that would cure diabetes. Well, it doesn't. And it doesn't cure type 1 diabetes, obviously. But here's the next good part is carbs turn into plaque on your teeth. This is the same plaque that goes to the heart and clogs the arteries. Well, I don't know where you're getting that idea from, that plaque on your teeth is the same as the plaque in the arteries. I don't know where that's coming from. It's definitely not true. It's definitely not the same. And the plaque on your teeth, is coming from bacteria. All the issues with teeth come from bacteria in the mouth, and it does come from carbohydrates or sugar sticking to the teeth. That is a bad problem. But it's not the same thing as heart disease that clogs the arteries. Like, you just, if you're buying into that, that's crazy, because we know what the plaque in the arteries is, and we know what causes it. It's related to saturated fat in the diet. No matter how you look at it, there's 50, 60, 70 years of research going way back to show the connection between saturated fat in the diet and heart disease. If you're going to just pretend it's all a conspiracy, fair enough, but you need to have 50, 60 years of research in the opposite direction. And the people that were against those ideas, the scientists that were against it, they said, no, it's not saturated fat, it's animal protein. So they were all saying the same thing. It was unquestionable. It was the meat and the dairy, right? So, anyway, you may want to look up Steve Jobs. He died of pancreatic cancer. Had it for 10 years. He too lived on fruit. He did, at a time, he did live on fruit. I think when he got cancer, I think he tried to heal it himself, and I think that's probably more of the reason that he's dead than anything else. He got diagnosed with cancer. He didn't have an operation. I don't know what that operation would have entailed. Could it have removed the tumour? I don't know. He would potentially be still alive today, but he did try and cure it naturally. It was probably a bad idea. Why he got that cancer? Was it his vegan diet? I don't think there's any connection between fruit and pancreatic cancer, apart from that one connection that you're trying to make. That's not really enough to show any kind of trend. I don't think there's any connection being shown between vegan diet and pancreatic cancer. Otherwise, pancreatic cancer would not exist, because there's so few vegans, and so few vegans going back 20, 30 years that would have done it long enough for it to cause cancer. So just think about these things, like pancreatic cancer is not a vegan issue. It's not a fruitarian issue. It's an issue for people that eat meat, for sure. So that's the first group of questions. Let's have a look. Fruit is yes, and fruit is naturally available whole year, right? This is sarcastic. And all these men-made fruits are healthy, right? You do know that veganism is very unnatural and healthy. Fruit is available throughout the year. Like, I don't know why that's an issue. Clearly, if I go across the road to the supermarket, there's fruit available all the time. But we used to live, we we used to live in the warmer climates of the world, and so the fruit was available all the time. And even if it didn't always grow, it was stored, it was dried, and it was imported even back then to some extent. Or it was turned into wine more commonly. So there was kind of a fruitiness around all the time with wine and alcohols. Even, don't need to prove that to you, but even if we come up to these climates, yeah, fruit is available. As I said, we used to actually grow things like apples and stuff that would last a long time. So we did have fruit available to us for quite a long period of the year. It was important because it was an important part of nutrition. Fruit is sugar, same thing again, and just fruit's unhealthy and all the rest of it. Fruit is the healthiest food. Let's see if there's any. What if you don't live in the tropics? Well, I don't live in the tropics, and I get fruit everywhere. I'm not sure where you live, but I'm sure you get fruit if you want. And in terms of the meat you eat, do you really think that's all grown in your country? Is it all grown down the road at a little farm? Of course not, because you probably live in a city like me with 1 million plus people, 500,000 plus people. These little farms out on the side of the motorways, they're not producing your meat. Or they're not producing the food for the meat anyway. So when you're eating meat, a lot of it will be imported, but a lot of it is, almost all the animals will be fed on feed that is grown in other countries. So the animal feed is imported from perhaps South America, maybe America, maybe China, India, who knows? But it's geographically, physically impossible for us to grow all of our own meat for example, in the UK, and grow all of the food that those animals need to eat. It's just like impossible space-wise. So we need to utilise the space and land of other countries, and so the idea that your fruit's being imported, so's your meat, so's the food that the animals are eating. How do you survive on a raw vegan diet in Scotland? The growing season is not long enough to grow fruit and veg. Like, do people not understand that even in Scotland, we import fruit, that we have fruit coming in from other countries? So that's how you do it. Did your foods get imported from all over the world? Yeah, they do. All these man-made fruits. There's no GMO. There's no GMO, really. There's maybe a little bit of GMO in some places, not that much. And you've got to start realising that the fact that you think the fruit looks too good to be true is because that's your instinct to look at fruit and think it looks amazing and looks too good to be true. Whereas meat looks really bad. Like, what's the opposite of too good to be true? Too bad to be true. It's too bad to be our natural diet. Meat looks too bad to be true. So, I don't know if you're temporarily getting some kind of healing benefit from eating meat, your digestion temporarily, if it's helping you in some way, helping you lose weight or whatever. But the path of the fruit thing, I'm just planting a seed, because some of you'll do this in 10 years time. You won't change your diet, you'll eat meat for a long time or whatever. But you keep the truth will always come out. Like, you've heard this now, you've heard this truth, you cannot deny it. It's there, it's in you, and it'll eventually sprout and grow. You just can't deny it. It's undeniable, right? So anyway, thanks for watching the video. If you want to learn more about the raw vegan stuff, fruitfest.co.uk, you can get a free book there about recipes and stuff. And I also do coaching for those interested. I've got I've got a thing you can sign up for and get more information about that. I'll put a link below. And we'll see you in another video. What more do you want? Like, what more do you want me to say? Like, when you come up with these arguments against eating fruit, like, they're pretty poor arguments. There's a few good ones. There's a few good ones. You could say that it's, you know, hard to get enough calories from eating fruit. You could say that. You could say a whole bunch of things. So these aren't very good. These aren't testing me. These things. You need to test me a bit more. You need to find some reality around this meat diet, and find someone that has done it like for a lifetime, because it doesn't happen. Okay, thanks. The video's running out. The battery's running out. Whatever. See you in another video. Comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. See you in another video.